You were on a panel earlier talking about the state of the covered bond market. What were your key takeaways of that?
I think the most relevant question to me was actually one at the beginning, which was about the state of the covered bond market and the broader context. Speaking of the covered bond market, we can actually conclude it's fit for future. It's produced amazing results. I think a very rich year, maybe not in terms of size, but certainly on track for some 175 billion this year. But a large variety of innovation, of new names coming to the market from Singapore, from Korea. Portugal has made a tremendous comeback, which is really telling us about, that the financial crisis is way behind us and the lessons have been learned. We've seen the first digital fund brief from Berlin Hub also. So a lot of things happening. And we could conclude the covered bond market is an island of happiness. But then unfortunately, the waters out there are a little rough, and that is the broader context, which is a little, you could say, either depressing, but you could also say there is opportunities and there is a sense of urgency to tackle. And I think that's what the ECB is trying to do. That's a message that is coming from here. And I think there is a strong willingness across Europe to move ahead, to tackle basically lack of growth, high government debt. The geopolitical context has been discussed many, many times. And the fact that the loan production and the willingness to invest actually is a little muted at the moment.
And you talk about that in Brussels, in particular the Draghi report was talking about a new impetus to capital markets union. Again, it's been around for a long time. Are you more optimistic about CMU this time?
Yes, simply by nature. But the thing, you got to give credit to Draghi, and obviously I have not read the report yet. He's putting out a bold number. But the number is not that bold. Speaking of some 800 billion per year, if you see what has been achieved in and around the European Commission, for example, that has been developed as a fully fledged, let's say, almost government-style issuer over the last 3 years, doing 750 billion. Europe is able to achieve these type of things. The only thing that will have to be different around the Draghi report is that we need the different components of what Europe can do in mobilizing private and public capital will need to be combined. So it's not about the government trying to be the better covered bond market. It's about the covered bond market that works well, should be further developed where able, and governments, if they want to give, let's say, some risk protection on certain areas, they should do where the market maybe cannot offer solution at the moment. And by combining the two, I think it's not about comparing the apples and the pears, but it's about having the apples and the pears and the bananas, but not the lemons.
And I know you're an optimist, so in the Capital Markets Union, what do you think are the key things which we could achieve and could give a real benefit to the economy?
We were involved on that first digital fund brief, and one of my learnings was that on the technical side of things, almost everything is available. So we have to basically put it to use. And I think in contrary to the transition in ESG, which was actually successful, but at the peak, some 30% of the covered bond market was, let's say, green or sustainable, which is huge, but it took almost 10 years. And I think in digital, we won't have those 10 years. But also by setting some standards around what the ECB is already doing, we will actually have solutions which will not have to be, tested and approved by markets, but they will basically be set by central bank, for example. I think we have a powerful tool to moving this market basically into a instant settlement type of world. And I think that is a way also of removing risk from the system, which is again good. And we can use that capital for way better use in terms of, let's say, financing this policy agenda that we have ahead of us.
It's exciting innovation. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Richard.